All right, here's a scenario. You know, you and your team are going to be cranking out some video ads over the next few months. And, each of these ads has to have a legal disclaimer. And you want that legal disclaimer to show up in the same position over and over again. You also want to be able to share this positioning and copy with your teammates. And so what you're going to do is just take these two plain Jane pieces of text, and we're just going to go ahead and add them to the library. And what happens is you get this prompt. We're going to give it a name. Let's just call it D1. And then you have two options here. All right. Do I want to use the canvas size or do I want to use the visible size? First, let's take a look at visible size and see what that does. All right. So I've got my new disclaimer text up in the library, and I'm just going to come to a new area on the timeline, and I'm going to drag that guy down in. Okay, well, if I position it on the timeline, it always dead centers at 0, 0. So let's delete that. I mean, it's flexible. I can move it around, but we're going to delete it. And let's see what happens if I drag it over onto the canvas. Well, I get my snapping lines, and I guess, I can eyeball things, and maybe that's where it goes. I'm not sure exactly. I want it to be easy. I want it to be easy for my teammates to put it in the right position when I hand off this library, this advertisement library to them. So we're going to go ahead and delete that from the library. And we're going to go back to the old drawing board, come down to our copy, disclaimer copy, and we're going to add to library again. I'm going to call it D1 again. And this time we're going to use canvas size. All right, so we add it to the library. And now it's up there. Again, we'll move to a clean area of the timeline, and we'll just drag it down. Okay, when I drag it to the timeline, it's dead centered at 0, 0. And actually what's happened here is a library asset is just a fancy group, and groups have sizes in Camtasia 2020. So canvas size is most often what you're going to use. Not always, but most often, especially for a scenario like a lower third or this disclaimer text. Lots of different scenarios where you want exact positioning and you want it to be consistent every single time. I've got a bounding box, which is exactly the size of the canvas when it was created. So, this is only going to work if your team and you are using the same project dimensions over and over again. I'm in 1080p, so this is a 1920 by 1080 box, which we can see over here. So let's look at what happens when we drag this onto the canvas too. All right. Again, I get the snap lines, but it's much easier for me to get this in the right position. So this is really going to help new users out when they're trying to figure out how to get this in the correct position. The snap lines, the center lines, whether you go to the timeline or you go directly to the canvas from the library, you always get the same position. Now, things can get even wonkier when you've got a more complicated setup. Like in this scenario, I've got this nice little title treatment that I've built. You can see it's got a couple of groups. It's got a shape that's being animated. And if I zoom the canvas back out and I select these items, you can see their bounding boxes are kind of all over the place. So let's take a look at what happens when we add these as to the library as an asset. So I'm going to add them, and I'm going to call this D2. And this time we're going to use visible size again and add it. And we'll move to a clean area of the timeline, and we'll go get our nice little asset. And I'm going to click off this first, and then we're going to go get our little asset, and we're going to bring it over onto the canvas. And it's like, whoa, what is going on here? What the heck happened? Well, first of all, let's make this 100%. Camtasia said, wow, that's a really big group. We're going to scale it down for you. So scale it down. Now what's going on? Well, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly where this thing should be. I guess maybe right there. I mean, I got pretty close, but I had to do a lot of futzing, and I bet you there was wrong. I was in the wrong position slightly in a few different areas, right? So we're just going to go ahead and delete this guy. And this time, we're going to take those same animations and we're going to add it to the library. And we'll add it as canvas size. All right, so add. And we'll click off of it. And we're going to come up and grab that guy. I'm going to bring it over onto the timeline. And as you might expect from the previous examples of this, now we have this perfect positioning. It's exactly the dimensions of the canvas, right? So hope you enjoy this tip about Camtasia 2020 and asset sizes.